Hello and welcome to That's Just Wild with me, Steve Backshaw.
Me, Lizzie Daly.
Me, Sarah Roberts, and also Yamba the dog, which is my dog who's come to the studio for the day.
So sweet.
The podcast all about nature, wildlife, and how I once learned how to break glass with my voice to demonstrate how sperm whales hunt.
That's cool.
Was this?
And you did it.
I'm imagining an opera singer.
Yeah.
How high is your soprano note?
It doesn't necessarily have to be high. You just have to create the right vibrations in the right kind of glass. So I saw this YouTuber, a guy called Mike Boyd, who learns how to do particular skills. And he did this explainer on how to learn how to do it. It took me about 2 weeks, and I was doing it with my researcher, Poppy Rampling. The two of us were both just screaming at glasses for hours and hours and hours on end. And then Poppy succeeded, and hers exploded. Like massive excitement. So then I still hadn't managed to do one. We came to filming it, and the two of us both got there in front of our glasses on camera and screamed and screamed and screamed at our glasses, and mine went.
Hey!
Mine exploded. And the sense of just two kids all of a sudden, you know, given too much sugar, and just like exploding, jumping up and down like was wild.
What is the vibration?
Yeah, what's the trick?
So you've got to, the way you do it, you put a crystal glass, very, very fine crystal. You put a straw into it, and when you're creating the right vibration, the straw starts jumping around inside the glass like this. And if you can keep going, then you hear the glass start to hone, and then it goes.
I know exactly what Lizzie
Cool little
Daly's
physics
doing tonight.
Yeah, that's tonight's antics after a glass of red wine. I shall try and smash it.
So have you had any good animal encounters this week?
Well, we've both been on the beaches of Cornwall this week, and Lizzie almost had an animal encounter, but...
it's pupping season for a lot of our grey seals. So we had a little seal on the beach, unfortunately injured. But thanks to BDLMR, they were there and taking full care of this little seal pup that was it was kind of underweight, malnourished. So went straight into the centre there at the Cornish Seal Sanctuary, which is great. But it's an interesting one because this time of year, obviously, there's lots of pups just rocking up on our beaches in little coves and bays, which is lovely to see. But obviously, try and see them from afar if you can, because they are vulnerable.
And mostly the advice is that you should leave them well alone and not try and pick them up, not try and move them. And if they really seem to be in trouble and emaciated, then, like you say,
call someone. I think even if you're a bit unsure, best to call someone and stay from a distance rather than doing anything yourself.
Absolutely.
Because they have got teeth.
I've got a confession. I met up with someone who I shall not name, and you know who you are, this week. And apparently there's a whole community of young people in the marine world, and they have a title for you, Steve.
This sounds sinister.
It's in a large group of marine biologists. You know who you are. They call you Shark Daddy. You are known as Shark Daddy around the UK and beyond.
How do you feel about that?
I feel perturbed.
You look quite chuffed, actually.
Good, isn't it? No,
Is
Lizzie doesn't agree.
I need to know more about the community.
I don't think we need to know anymore. I don't think we should delve too deep.
All I'm saying is start the hashtag Shark Daddy from this, please, and I want to see it go big. That's all I'm saying.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. And Steve, you've got a book out at the moment, right? That's doing rather well.
Yeah. So after all these years, I finally brought out a new Deadly 60 book, and it has gone into the Sunday Times bestseller list.
Mad.
6.
That's huge.
Above the new Dogman book, which my little boy will never believe. But yes.
Wow. That's mega.
I'm very, very, very chuffed.
Reason to celebrate.
Yeah. Anyway, today we're talking about spotted cats. There's a reason for that, because World Jaguar Day is just around the corner on November 29th. So this is a perfect opportunity to celebrate these staggering creatures. I know that you, Lizzie, particularly spent a lot of time with jaguars, a lot of time working with various cats of different persuasion, Sarah. So this is
I'm going to learn a lot from this podcast.
So I think it's a really, really good one for us to get started on. Sarah, would you like to introduce the jaguar to us all?
It's rather large, it's rather spotty, it lives in the Pantanal, amongst other places, including Arizona. I want to say the size of a mountain lion, is it?
Bigger.
Bigger than a mountain lion?
They're the biggest cat in the New World, in the Americas. They are significantly bigger than puma, mountain lion, cougar.
Smaller than a leopard?
Bigger than leopard too.
Bigger than a leopard.
Bigger and more powerfully built than leopard. So they are extremely formidable. My good friend of the podcast, Justine Evans, filmed them catching, killing, eating turtles, leatherback turtles, I think. Just
Cool.
literally
Strong jaws then.
unbelievable. So the majority of bites are through the skull and into the brain. And that can be, as I will explain a little bit later on, with crocodiles. With quite big crocodiles sometimes. They have a powerful enough bite to go clean through the brain case.
Am I right in thinking that they can jump out of trees?
That's more leopards.
Okay.
Jaguars are more creeping super, super close and then pouncing the last few strides. And most attacks, as with leopards, tend to come within the final kind of 5 meters or so.
Would you know if you were being...
I think you wouldn't know
tracked?
until it was...
It's not a bad way to go
I've
then.
got a-
Straight blow to the head.
No, I tend to agree.
Yeah.
I got a story from Santa Rosa National Park where Justine filmed. I believe it was on this strip of beach, which is basically you've got dry forest, miles and miles of it up against this like 1 kilometre long beach. And this is where the turtles come to lay their eggs. And I don't want to say we were stalked by this jaguar, but there was a male who some of the locals knew, and we were trying to film a few of the jaguars hunting along looking for turtles, and we saw him. We tracked him down the beach with a thermal camera because otherwise we're standing in the dark, we can't see anything. And then he almost like did a bit of a Yui, and over about an hour he just got closer and closer to us, and we could see he was using the edge of the forest, not doing anything other than sitting and watching. But you know what it's like with jaguars. It's like when they're locked in, it's just a different behaviour entirely. And it was a bit like, okay, like let's just maybe take a step back.
Did you feel like you could have been on the dinner plate? Did you get that
No.
vibe of like, hey, he's not checking me out. He's
it's
actually
not-
weighing up what I taste like.
Yeah, it's not that we're, will be attacked, but I think they behave completely differently to the ones who are habituated in the Pantanal. It was my first experience of seeing jaguars elsewhere, and they're very much a forest cat. They're very elusive, quite hard to kind of spend real time with, other than when they're, focusing on the turtles. It was just a slight switch up in behaviour, I felt, there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I've spent a lot of time tracking jaguars, months tracking them, finding nothing more than their prints and their scat, very little time actually in front of them. I've also found that I think there appears to be the biggest physical difference in terms of how imposing they are between the males and the females.
Yeah.
So most of them that I'd seen were females, and they're beautiful and they're impressive and they have a sleekness and a sinuous way of moving that is enchanting. And then you see a male
Yeah.
and their heads are enormous. They are utterly intimidating, and they appear to be just many orders of magnitude bigger and more scary than a female does. But when we first started out filming wildlife, if someone had said, we want you to go off and film a jaguar hunting, I'd have said they were absolutely mad. In the late 1990s, when I got started, the early 2000s, that was not possible. And over the last kind of 20 years or so, things have changed so much in the understanding and conservation, but particularly the experience of learning where they're going to, the increase in tracking individuals, particularly in the area that you spent a lot of time in the Pantanal. That now, our last trip, we went out there, we were there for a week, and we saw 3 hunts, one of which was of a caiman.
Right, how big is the cat? Because I've seen these online, but I've never obviously seen this in person. So, like, what kind of size difference are we talking?
Between the cat and the croc that it's
caiman,
hunting.
yeah.
So the one that we witnessed happening, she was a female. My guesstimate would be that she would be around about 45, 50 kilos. That sound about right?
Yeah, they're about half the males.
She wasn't particularly huge.
Yeah.
And we watched her all day long, from very early in the morning, right through until near sundown. In fact, actually, by the time the whole thing had finished, it was dark. And she barely moved all day long. And then it got to about dusk, and she just stretched a bit, got up from the rock she was in, and started wading through this marshy habitat. We were like, what on earth is she doing? She's just wandering up and down. And then suddenly, water goes everywhere, this explosion of spray and spume, and she just lifts her head and has a crocodile in her mouth.
good.
And it was considerably longer than she was. It must have weighed at least as much, if not more than she did. And she picked it up in her mouth, but it's still writhing and struggling, and just walked off with it. She walked into deeper scrub, so we didn't see her finish it off. But our drone pilot, incredibly talented young guy. If you're working in Brazil, I've got to give you this guy's name because he was genius. Cesar, his name was. He got the drone up really high, so high that she couldn't see it, but then zoomed in. And we've got these shots, the top-down shots of her just biting the head off this caiman, this croc.
Cool.
It was awesome. And then there's this one moment where she looks up and she looks dead at the drone. And honestly, even though I was only watching on the little screen, I nearly jumped about 6 feet in the air. It was so intimidating. And she looked like she was wearing bright red lipstick. And she just got all this blood all over her face. It was amazing.
Wow. So what I love about jaguars and the ability to watch them like that and in such detail with habituated individuals, you really get to know their personalities. There's one female who spent quite a lot of time with, and she loved to hunt armadillo. And she had taught her young one also to hunt armadillo. Now, most jaguars, when they eat armadillo, they'll be sick because they eat all the contents. They don't know how to separate, the certain organs from the meaty flesh and how to do it in the right way. And she, with surgical precision, has managed to learn how to do it, easy prey source, and to pass that on as a skill. Completely different to another forest cat, or one that likes to hunt at night time, or one that particularly likes to, hunt down larger prey like deer. It's just phenomenal.
How difficult can that be? I mean, armadillo, soft on the inside, crunchy on the outside. Everyone knows that.
Come on. We're sorry, all armadillo lovers on this podcast.
I saw a video on Instagram actually a couple of days ago of jaguar hunting giant anteater. Which looked so impressive. So impressive. And actually, once they've got it cornered, even though they're really good at sort of fighting back and they've got the great big claws and things, but
did it fight back?
The video didn't go that far.
Oh no. Here's
me getting all my content from Instagram. Seriously, mostly what I do is read scientific papers. I don't just rely on social media for my wildlife content.
That's cool though.
So you guys have both seen jaguars in the wild. Have you seen them swim much?
Yeah. So our first encounter on the last filming trip, we got a call that there was 2 jaguars together, and we kind of zipped off in our vehicle to get as close as we could. And it was a mother and quite an advanced youngster. I mean, he must have been very, very close to heading off on his own. So they were about the same sort of size. And we watched them, and they went into a big pond. There were lots of caiman in the pond. We watched them try to hunt them. They failed, but it was still pretty cool. But the most amazing thing was, for over an hour, the 2 of them just played. They just played like a couple of puppy dogs in a puddle, just jumping all over each other, smacking each other with their paws, play fighting. The youngster would play stalk up on his mum and then leap out of the bushes and jump onto her. The whole thing filmed in very low light, but with all the spray jumping about all over the place. It was incredible, and we were all like, oh my gosh, that's the greatest jaguar encounter I've ever had. If that's it, and we go home at the end of this week and we haven't got anything else, then we're going home happy. And that was just I don't know if that even got into the program. It was so average by comparison. But yeah, they do spend a lot of time in the water. They hunt a lot in the water, particularly around the Pantanal. And the first time I went to Pantanal to try and find them, the way that you find them is by listening to the calls of the capybara. The alarm call, which is kind of a whistling snort of capybara, the world's largest rodent.
Giant guinea pig.
Yes, exactly. Carries for a really good distance. So you just sit still in your boat and you listen, and then you hear a kind of that's kind of that barking whistle from the capybara, and you follow it, and quite often they've spotted or they have a sense of the jaguar around, and you sit and you watch and you wait, and that's how we saw our first one.
I didn't actually see jaguars swimming that much really in the whole time I was there, but my favourite moment of we would go out first light basically at dawn, and we'd be driving down this road, and we rounded this corner and there was a tapir sat in this body of water, but looked like we just stumbled across an old naked man in a bath. He was turned around with shock, and we turned around with shock at the tapir, and then it ran off into the bush. And I was like, that's the weirdest, very intimate experience.
Old naked man in the bath?
I don't.
Previous experience, clearly.
I think it just felt so intimate in that moment where I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. He was stumbled across it anyway.
Gone into the wrong bathroom.
That's what it felt like. Vibe. Yeah. Oh, sorry, sir.
Ultimately, we didn't have much record of jaguars swimming further than 200 meters. So our records of jaguars do like water and they do like to swim, but they were dated back to 1932 until recently. When camera trap footage in 2020 in Brazil found near a hydroelectric reservoir that a jaguar had basically swam across to a completely different island. If you look on the map, there's a small snippet of land in between. So it either did 2.3 kilometers at once swimming, or it might have had a little pit stop on this sandbar and carried on. Biologists that were involved in it, they suspect that it did the swim at once because they're like, it's not really in the jaguar's nature to stop and have a breather like I would need to do. They suspect it probably just did it all at once.
That is a fabulous story. I don't want to diminish it at all. I do think we underestimate the movement of big cats and what they can do. You know, we've since seen through photography and through tagged pumas how far they can swim, sometimes swimming 10 kilometers at a time just to get to, you know, sheep on an island in Patagonia. It's amazing how far cats can swim, how far they can travel, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're making these long distance journeys all the time. If there's enough of a driver to get them to the next location, I don't see why not.
Absolute survivalists, aren't they, really?
Yeah, how cool.
Speaking of another cat swimming, right, this is, for me, the epitome of what AI has done to me, because now I see videos and I'm actually like, but is it real? But is it real? And this is one video that recently came on the internet that I originally sent straight, I think, to you, Lizzie, and I was like, is this real? Because I'm not sure what to believe.
Yeah.
But it was a viral video of a jaguar that was swimming in a lake with a gunshot wound, and then a team came, and it was a Brazilian military came in a little rib, and it kind of bites the side of a ball or something they've thrown in the water, and it's clinging with its claws to this buoy that's attached to the rib. And they drag it to safety. I was like, surely that's not real, but apparently it is.
Yeah.
Did you guys see it?
I
Lizzie's
did see
just
it, yeah.
completely not shocked at all.
I mean, it probably just looks so surreal because suddenly you're looking at an animal that looks panicked and is drowning and kind of in this like very vulnerable state. So I think when you look at it, you're like, oh, that's a bit jarring, and you kind of see the jaguar in a different light. But it looks real to me.
I think the problem is so many of those AI videos where it's people rescuing animals, and it's like,
worst,
and it just felt, for me, I just couldn't imagine that a scared cat as big as that would swim towards a boat and not away from it.
Or that if you caught it and pulled out the water, it wouldn't shred you and everybody on board.
Yeah, in fear.
Yeah.
Well, happy World Jaguar Day. We know they're absolutely epic, but this is the spotted cat episode, so let's zoom out and look at our other big cat species, because we have lots of fascinating and beautiful patterns on our big cats, don't we?
No.
We do.
We do. Okay. I mean, it sounds obvious, but it is an important place to start, because we see spots, we see rosettes on our beautiful jaguar, and we see stripes. And I think a lot of people listening will already be aware of what some of these drivers are, but it's very much driven by disruptive coloration and the environment in which they're in. I want to throw in an interesting theory that I came across in the 1950s. Alan Turing, who you may know the name because he was like the master of cracking secret codes in World War II, he actually came up with a theory. It was all about the chemicals in skin. And actually, he suggested that chemicals, as they interact, they spread and interfere with one another, they naturally organise themselves into patterns. This whole theory is fascinating, and it's just like kind of a different angle. They also go on to talking about designing each stripe and each spot, which obviously we're talking about design.
You can see the panic in your eyes as
the creation
Steve
glitch.
looking at you as a biologist.
It's an interesting theory back in the 1950s that he's like put that out there with so much confidence that that could be the driver of that. But evolutionary biology tells us that the cues of the long shadows that you get in forested habitats with tigers drive the stripes. The incredible ability for that disruptive kind of rosette or spot to break up a big predator in that environment, whether it be a savanna for a leopard, or in a forest for a jaguar. These are the things that drive these variations.
It's important to note that we see them as big orange stripy cats, but a lot of the prey that they would be preying on, the deer or whatever, they don't see in the same colour spectrum that we see. So although to us it's but why would you make it orange, or why would you make it stand out in yellow and completely, for those animals it's almost even more invisible because of the
if you have
shade.
dichromatic or monochromatic vision, then the orange is going to look very similar to the greens, and the blacks will blend in with the darks of the shadows, and the white will blend in with the light from the sun. And tigers, even though out in the open, are so obvious, you put them in a bush or you put them in alternating shade and they can be almost invisible to us. But we did an experiment on Deadly, actually, where we recreated the vision of the kinds of animals that tigers are preying on in that habitat, and we showed exact same images that we could see with our own eye, looking at it through the eyes of a brocket deer, and they're invisible. They are absolutely invisible.
I love that.
Yeah, it absolutely works. And the same thing with spots and rosettes with things like jaguars and leopards. You spend any time in a forested habitat, and particularly when the sun is at its height and the sun is cutting down through leaves above, you get little patches, little dots, little spots, little rosettes of light and dark and shade. And it's insane how a leopard or a jaguar can be sat meters away from you and you cannot see it with our eyes. And if you were an animal with dichromatic vision, monochromatic vision, you'd have just no chance. It'd be invisible, completely invisible to you.
I always think of how much I got the piss taken out of me when I went into the bush, because I generally love a nice beige coloured shirt, and I tend to wear denim jeans or whatever. I just kind of have my bush outfit. But when you go, all right, guys, when
for a
you
second
go...
there, I tend to have my bush out. Was just. I'm so glad you went on to say outfit.
He actually went.
You panicked. Listen, Shark Daddy, get back in your cage a minute. So I'll be turning up in what I think is looking quite cool and appropriate, but then you get the guys on the ground that are doing anti-poaching, and I had a camera guy with me once who was in North Face gear, but he was wearing bright yellows and black and white and all this stuff. And in my head, I'm like, what's he doing wearing that to the bush? And I felt way cooler. And the guys were like, no, he's far more blended in than you are. You stand out like a sore thumb. You'll be scaring all the animals off. And he's actually broken up.
Do you know what I love as well about it is when you spend enough time with a population or a number of big cats that like with the jaguars, the series we filmed, those 5 characters we picked out. And if you spend enough time with them, you do start to pick up those individual patterns that they have. And we rely on those to be able to ID jaguars, but they're an important signal for, cubs as well, for identification between mother and cub. So I love that, because there'd be love heart rosettes and big splodges on one, and then, tiny little really peculiar shapes on another. And I think they're just a wonderful way of building character.
Can I throw to a very, very different kind of spotted cat?
Yeah.
And what would be one of my favourite and most unexpected encounters in Deadly 60 history, in the 17 years we've been making the series. Wonderful friend of mine working over in South Africa told me about one of the Servals secunda petrochemical plants that has around the outskirts of the plant a really huge area that is shut off from people, and has become, purely by chance, the best place in the world to see serval.
Oh, cool.
Now, to anyone who doesn't know what a serval is like, imagine taking a house cat, a tabby house cat, and giving it ears like giant satellite dishes, and then putting it on the medieval rack so that all its limbs get stretched to kind of 5 times their length, like it's walking on stilts. That's what a serval's like. They are legendary for being able to bounce straight up in the air, a couple of meters, to catch birds as they fly past. They are dazzling and legendarily difficult to find. So we went to this place, and it looks like Blade Runner. It looks like a scene out of Dune. You've got this repulsive petrochemical plant with the fumes flying up into the air. It's got a great big cooling pond in front of it that reflects everything from this technological monstrosity, a real sort of nightmare vision of the future. But then around it is all this scrubby vegetation. And you go out at night and the servals are everywhere.
Wow.
And this is a cat that you just can't find anywhere else in Africa. Or if you do, it's pure serendipity. And we were filming as a serval came into our headlights at the front of our vehicle, no more than a few meters away from us, and did its famous leap up out of the headlights and into the bushes, and emerged with a rodent in its mouth, scoffed it, knocked it down. And I just turned around to the camera, we're just starting to babble and gibber, and then it turned and it did it again behind me in 2-shot as we were filming on 3 different cameras. It was mind-blowing.
That's cool.
And all happened in the grounds of what would look like literally the place on the planet you'd be least expecting to see any kind of wildlife.
Why? Yeah. Why do you think they've thrived in that particular environment?
No people and no leopards.
Right.
So they'd created, pretty hefty fences that had kept out the leopards that normally drive serval on, and they just absolutely thrived there. Really high rodent populations, no people. And so, it's turned into serval paradise.
Fantastic.
So
and we've got all these. It's also the place where we brought along a local crew who had an octocopter drone, the biggest drone I've ever seen in my life. It was like half the size of our car, and they crashed it into a hill. It's the only actual physical formation on the totally flat landscape, and they crashed this massive drone into it full pace. Yeah, which was an expensive day out for them.
From one extreme to another, I just have to mention the one cat that I didn't see when I was in Sri Lanka. I know I keep mentioning it, but guys, I went to Sri Lanka, and while I was there,
what were you doing in Sri Lanka?
Yeah, having a good time. No, other than telling the stories of human-elephant conflict, I was also on a bit of a mission to tick off some big species like the sloth bear and like some of the cats that they've got there. They've got 4 species of cat in Sri Lanka. They've got the jungle cat, the fishing cat, leopard, and the world's smallest cat, the rusty spotted cat.
How small is
Sarah.
the world's smallest cat?
Sarah.
Are we talking kitten? What are we talking?
Like a
Small kitten.
fully grown
Small
male
kitten.
will fit in the palm of your hand.
Shut up.
They weigh about 1 kilo to 1.5 kilos.
What?
It is one of the most weird things, because whenever a program I think tries to like show the life of a rusty spotted cat, it just looks like an escaped kitten, and it's like going through the foliage, and it's just like swimming. It's fully in this kind of dense vegetation, doing what another cat would. It's very much like a fishing cat. It will, eat a variety of things, and invertebrates and small fish and even small birds. The beauty of this it's the world's smallest, tiny cat, is that it's filled a niche that the other cats haven't. The jungle cat and fishing cat that also share the similar habitat across Sri Lanka and India, they will go for slightly larger, more difficult prey, but they are tiny.
Oh my gosh, it literally, that's an adult. That looks like a kitten. So Steve's just turned his laptop around to show me a picture of one, and there's a man.
They're adorable.
I feel like, though, in the world of cats, that cat is probably effing and jeffing and get off
Human,
me, foul human. And it's like,
Super
it
aggro.
literally is held in this man's palm of his hand like a really cute little small kitten, but that is an adult cat, probably hissing inside.
And the kittens are born at like 60 grams, 80 grams in weight.
That's wild.
They're tiny. Imagine bumping into one of those. I mean, it's extremely hard to see in the wild, just because huge challenges to their environment, massive degradation and impact on their food as well. So, yeah, they're hard to spot, but if you do see one.
So you saw one?
No, they're the one cat out the 4 I didn't see when I was there.
But they could have just been there, just too short to stick
Yeah, maybe
out
I
from
did
under
see
the
one.
grass.
I was just like, oops, there's a leaf. Yeah, so they've got to get a mention because they're fabulous.
Well, I've got a complete different contrast here, because I want to go back to the big cats a second and talk about some new research. Have you guys, and I'm really, really hoping that the man sat next to me, Shark Daddy, can help me out with this, but have you guys ever heard a leopard roar? Come on, you must have an impression.
It's not a true. It doesn't sound like you would imagine a.
No, it's not like a lion.
What does it sound like?
It's more like soaring roars, they call it. So it's like low pitch repeated.
Shall I play it?
Go on.
Yes,
Leopard
play
roar.
it for us. Yeah, so it's like low grumbly, repeated roars. Yeah. That's
lion.
it.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
It's like a soaring roars, they call it. So the thing about leopards is they're really spread out. They have a huge territory and they're sparsely populated in certain areas. And it's quite difficult to study leopards, especially if you've got other big cats around. So scientists have, ever evolving, figured out a new way of doing it. They have been setting up camera traps, but setting up microphones alongside the camera traps as well, and then analysing the bioacoustics from the leopards. So there was a study it was a collaborative effort between the University of Exeter, the Wildlife Conservation Unit, the University of Oxford, Lion Landscapes, Frankfurt Zoological Society, Tanzania Wildlife Institute for Research, and Tanzania National Parks Authority. Big collaborative effort because, as I said, they're few and far between and it's hard to get them on camera. But what they found is by recording the bioacoustics, so recording those roars, they're able to identify individuals with 93% accuracy.
Wow, that's quite high accuracy.
That's really high accuracy, yeah.
Cool.
So it's not just like the spots that can give them away, but you could also identify them by their roars, which means you don't even have to see them, which when you're saying how difficult it is to see a big spotty cat, that could make their job so much more effective.
Yeah. It's like when I know I can hear you come in before I can see you. So I'm like, that's Sarah and she's on her way.
Well, what you could do is you could clip up her reaction to what you just said about the cat earlier on, where she went, "Shut up!" Just do that. Just clip that every time Sarah's coming.
You're literally determined to isolate that northern population. There's a lot of us up there, Steve.
Well, while we're talking about leopards, can we briefly nudge on Arabian leopards?
Yeah.
Which I'm very, very lucky to have done a couple of stories on, one in Saudi Arabia and one in Oman. We were just working with camera trapping, but they're so fantastically rare that the fact that we got them on camera traps in just a couple of days, and they are so beautiful. Oh my goodness. And seeing them in that desert landscape, wandering along precipitous desert cliff faces, striding through, rocky gorges and canyons, some of the most dazzling camera trap footage I've ever seen. And we were working in Saudi Arabia just before at Ahlula, which is their kind of main centre, historical centre. We're launching into a big conservation area, protecting big areas for the Arabian leopard, also potentially working in the future into reintroduction efforts. Since they started that program, when we were there, they've more than doubled their population in the area, which is just fantastic.
There's a big effort, isn't there, right now to bring back Arabian leopards into a few places. I know in Saudi there's really a project going on to sort of reintroduce Arabian leopards. It is so mind-blowing that they can survive in these huge arid landscapes. You just can't imagine that they would be able to find all of the prey and the escape from the sun. And
do you know what though? I think the coolest thing about camera trapping that we did in both those two places was we didn't see much wildlife. We were there, most of them were on expeditions. One was on a caving expedition going into extinct lava tunnels underneath the empty quarter in Saudi Arabia, and the other one was a first climbing expedition in Oman. And we didn't actually see much wildlife with our eyes. We put out camera traps. There's shed loads of stuff around. The amount of ibex, of these red-legged partridges, of hyrax, honey badgers, hyenas, all this kind of stuff that we were absolutely not seeing. But you can put the camera traps up and they're coming through all the time. They're just super, super sensitive to human contact. They're out of the way during the hottest part of the day. They've taken themselves
more nocturnal or crepuscular.
Exactly, much more kind of crepuscular. We did get stuff at night, but mostly crepuscular. That is active at dawn and dusk. And it was a really enlightening view on what desert life in those parts of Saudi and Oman was like. There's much more there than we thought possible, therefore much more prey for the leopards too. So it is possible. They are critically endangered, and they're one of the populations of leopard that is most on the brink, with obviously the Amur leopard, I think, probably being even worse.
Yeah.
But
left.
the immense amount of effort, and everything we worked with out there was all local. It was all grassroots. It was all stuff from locally run NGOs. It wasn't stuff that had been flown in from overseas. A lot of the stuff that we've done with Spotted Cats in the past has been with Pantera, which is an international organization mostly based in the States. This was all Saudi organizations. It was by the Alula Cultural Heritage Organization. It was with local biologists in Oman, which is just really heartening to see. And when you've got that kind of groundswell of opinion to want to bring back wildlife, both for its own purpose with no kind of greater sort of, economic goal, just purely because it's an animal that should be there and they want to have there is really heartening. We were really, really, really impressed.
I love that. That's awesome. I know we don't have much time left. I just wanted to share this very cool article that I came across. It's actually all about an unlikely pairing. A group of scientists set up some trail cameras to study bird behaviour, and they came across an opossum and an ocelot literally not walking hand in hand, but in their words, like two old friends walking home from a bar, which is very cool. So for reference, ocelots are like a small to medium sized cat, beautiful, spotty, they have kind of some stripy patterns on them, but they're absolutely stunning. And opossums, so not to be confused with possums. So possums in Australia and across Australasia are different to opossums. They're both marsupials. Confusingly, opossums are also called possums. So the opossums that are opossums and not possums are called possums, but then possums are also possums.
Get back to the cats as you have not clarified
anyway,
that.
They kind of look like they've got a ratty shaped face.
Yeah, they always look
furry,
shocked.
but really shocked and a cute quizzical. And the tail, are they not in something like Ice Age or something? They're in a program like that where they get shocked and they play dead on the floor. There's your opossum.
Exactly. Kids at Disney shows as a reference. I love it. No, but the reason this is really cool, I mean, ocelot and opossums, unlikely pairing, not really on the menu, opossums for ocelots, but, they don't really go together. There's no advantage. Scientists actually think, however, that the opossums might be using the scent of the ocelot to kind of hide behind it, to navigate through these forests as a way of kind of using it as a bit of a cover up by following closely behind.
I think they're just pals. I think we just need to accept it. Just good, firm friends.
Could be quite cool if they were just pals, but they think it might be a chemical camouflage. So they're doing more studies, trying to get an understanding of how they're moving together in other parts as well. Steve's looking very concerned.
No, it's just sprung to mind that opossums are legendarily stinky, aren't they?
Yes, they are, yeah.
Really smelly animals.
Have you guys not seen the footage? Is it a fox and a badger or something like that, and a wildlife? One of those flood drains. Same kind of thing. They're just like literally two pals going off together. There's quite a few actually unlikely pairings.
Are you thinking of a Pixar movie?
No, it's a real thing.
Is it the Coyote and the Badger?
Yes,
that's the one.
That's it. Coyote and the Badger. There you go.
They have a relationship,
and they just look like two
they
pals
hunt together.
Yeah, going off in the little storm drain. So yeah, maybe they can just be friends.
I love it.
But speaking of new sightings, unusual sightings, and because it's Jaguar Day, and because we've just mentioned ocelots, I'd just give a quick nod that there were also the first caught on camera in a specific region of Arizona in 50 years. They had ocelots. Do you know that there's actually an estimated only 100 left in the US population of ocelots?
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
In a specific region
in
the
US.
But they've only ever been right at the very
bottom bit, yes. So there did
US.
used to be a lot more than that. And it's the estimated population, but it's really difficult to get any kind of head count because, super rare sightings. But yeah, this was a camera trap project by the Phoenix Zoo, who's super excited about it. But yeah, there's cool. Very few left. And that a lot of that is just change of habitat, climate change, temperatures rising, change of prey, human disturbances, but it's positive because we've got fresh new sightings, so we'll hold on to the positive.
I think jaguars are one of the few animals that you can say to people, listen, there are situations where wildlife is getting better, where the conservation of an animal is more targeted, where the understanding of where they go and what they do is better, where the possible protection of where they live is way better understood than it was 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And I think, a lot of youngsters who are out there and battling the thought that everything in the natural world has gone to hell, there's nothing they can do about it, everything's getting worse. Well, that's not necessarily true, and it's certainly not true of jaguars. Jaguars are an animal that we understand better now than we ever have done before. We're going into a golden era of being able to find and film people to go on jaguar tourism, to be able to go with a camera and stand a really good chance of photographing a jaguar. That was not possible in the early 2000s.
Love that.
And now it is. And that's got to be a good thing.
Spotty golden era.
The spotty golden
Although
era.
they've got rosettes, don't mean to be pedantic. But, happy World Jaguar Day to end that. Remember, you'll have a Q&A episode coming your way on Friday. So remember to send your questions to questions@that'sjustwild.com and we'll get to them.
That's Just Wild is an original Fresh Air production. The producers are Eva Higginbotham and Izzy Clark. Your support's really welcome. You can follow us on your favourite podcast app. Leave us a review. It makes so much difference to the whole team. And for ad-free listening, our newsletter, special deep dive episodes and members-only benefits, you can subscribe to us at that'sjustwild.com. For ad-free listening, our newsletter, special deep dive episodes and members-only benefits, you can subscribe to us at that'sjustwild.com.